I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to follow this thing. But you see, at that time, I was primarily an instrumentalist. That's when now, after IB, in February 2000, a few months after IB, as I get into Bruce Odhiambo's studio.
This is now huge.
Johari Clef.
Yes. How did... so you don't get this Youth for Christ thing?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in the first time?
Yeah.
So how do you even hear of Bruce? How do you met him before? How does the story happen?
One of my good friends, Julian Masharia, who was also, he was in a group with my bro called Born Twice. And also let me add that Tim had met Kanji before I did. Because Tim was into the studio thing before I did.
Yes.
I was more into the performance stuff. Tim was more into, he liked the studio. So he was already, I think he was interning at Steve Oweru's studio. And he comes and tells me there's this singer he has met who's got a ponytail. I said, what's his name? His name is Kanji. So I was like, at that time, I was like, yeah. Good. Like, but like, this guy can sing. But I never met Kanji because now in 98, he leaves to the States. But anyway. Now,
so even this whole time of meeting Kaima, you've never met Kanji?
I've never met Kanji. Never met him at that time. Tim knew him, and Tim kept on saying that. But then let me also mention that in 1999, my palette for music had now grown. The Yellow Jacket stuff and the things that I was saying that were a bit too deep. Now I was like, give me more. Bring more of this stuff, you know. More improvised music, more. I started now really delving, like the Yellow Jackets became like a big, that's what I would study and listen. And I was like, I think I want to be a pianist.
Who was doing this in Kenya?
Okay, that's a good question.
Listening to Africans? Yeah.
Now, in terms of pianists, now Jacob had gotten a gig at the Stanley, but Zaka Munga, that day was special. When Java House opened, the first spot was at Adam's Arcade.
Yep. Now,
every Wednesday they'd have a jazz night. And the person playing there was Zakamunga. Now he got this cut, there's an older drummer who was such great language. It's called, I've forgotten his last name, Monte. Was it Monte? Yeah. Oh man. So one Wednesday, I decided, let me go check these guys out. And there's a trumpet player called Chris Cool. I think he's like a teacher at Brayburn. Those guys were playing it so hard. I think I went home that day spinning. And then then Jacob, one day I meet him, he says like, I'm playing at the Stanley, come check me out. I find some of the guys who Zach is playing with are the same guys. And then I was like, Jacob, when did you start playing this music? The last time I knew you're an R&B guy.
Yep.
So it seemed to me that that's the transition that these pianists are doing. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I should be doing then. So in terms of this music. And it just seemed like they were having so much fun when they're playing. The solos are like, you know, then that's when I started asking them, who do you listen to? But Zach was not as close to him as a friend that way.
Yep. So,
but Jacob is the one who told me, like, go check. He's the one who started getting me into the more traditional stuff. Miles Davis, Coltrane, that older stuff. Because what I was listening to was more fusion, contemporary jazz and fusion.
Yep.
But like these standards, you know.
And what does that mean when you say contemporary jazz and fusion?
Okay, jazz has got its story. There's the contemporary jazz fusion means that when basically in the most layman of laymans is when electronic instruments started showing up.
Okay, I get it.
And so now they started fusing other types of musics into it. You have the rock.
Yep.
You have got the soul. But then there's the jazz that up until when people started fusing with electronic music that was known.
I get it.
And that's when you have your Miles Davis.
Yep.
You've got your Thelonious Monk and all those older guys who the older periods, the swing era, the cool jazz, and that's when I started tuning to Capitol Jazz Club.
What? Capitol Jazz Club is that old?
It's the oldest show.
What?
When Capitol FM started in 1996. The show that has stayed since then is the Capitol Jazz Club.
No way.
Yeah, all the other shows have changed. It's the oldest show. It's 24 years old.
Yo.
Jack Odhiambo stayed on it for 17 years. So he's responsible to a big chunk of what I do. Because that's where I get a lot of information. Because he started playing this music that Jacob is talking about.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you ended up also hosting that show.
Yeah.
And now Kaimai and Jacob are doing it.
Serendipity, man. I'm like, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
So every Sunday I'd make sure, even when I was in high school, but then now in 1998, 99, 2000, I would listen to that guy's show like I didn't even time. Even the days when you remember those blackouts, those rationing for like, hey man, Kenya man, hey Kenyan, this Nairobi, you have seen things. I'd make sure that even I buy batteries so that I don't miss that show.
What?
Yeah.
It was your school.
It was my school because now because not so many shops were selling this music. Because the place where you get some of it was Asanans, and what is the other one on Moy Avenue? There's a music shop where we used to buy CDs. I've forgotten what is it called, and it will come. But every so often you'll find like one or two CDs. But then my folks had, thank the Lord, and they're even more progressive. Not only did they get the hi-fi that I've always been wanting, they hooked us up into internet.
Ooh, the change.
Yeah. So you know those days when you used to dial, you wait for it to shika, and then you wait for it, you know.
I mean, it's an internet sound by now. It's the internet sound.
Yeah, I feel it. So the Capital Jazz Club became a very big source of information and music for me.
Did they introduce any African?
I'm coming there.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I was really curious, because Jack was very heavy on a lot of the Western American, and because that's where jazz is.
Yep.
But occasionally, he'd throw in this jazz music, and jazz is really centered in South Africa.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. So he'll put in
a Huma
Sekela. That's when I started hearing of who is this Huma Sekela guy. So this Huma Sekela that has been thrown in. They're called Bekim Seleku. This Abdullah Ibrahim. There's all these guys from South Africa. Every so often he'd play a track or two. But then I'm like, and then in my mind I'm like, their music is legit jazz and it's improvised, but it's also very African. It's very South African. But you see, at that time now, I was still very excited about now discovering these other guys. Now even Yellow Jackets now had started to take a back burner, you know. So in 2000, Julian Masharia, who I mentioned, had gotten an internship at Bruce Odhiambo Studios at Johari Clef. For those who don't know, Johari Clef was actually Bruce started in Ram Kokot. You know Ram Kokot on Mombasa Road, just after Bellevue. That's where he started his setup.
That's where Kenya Only was recorded.
Yeah, no, Kenya Only was actually recorded the video was recorded or shot at Kenya National Theatre. Yeah. But he set it up there. And he had this relationship because those who helped him set up were the Kashukias.
Oh.
Yeah. And of course, Guido and Suzanne. So he had a very interesting relationship with Samawati at that time. So, and I think even he may have worked briefly. But anyway, so in 2000, this guy who's come up from Saints. Julian Masharia was working with Bruce, and then he tells me Bruce is looking for a pianist to help him write jingles. Jingles are the tunes that accompany advertisements. Like he needs a pianist, and he'll pay you an internship. I was like, man, I didn't carry on for money.
Yeah.
So, like, sure. So the first day I show up, he tells me to play. Like, yeah, you play. He's like, you play really well. Then he tells me, can you take a solo? So I look at him. Like, a solo? I didn't have the language, so I just play. Oh, well, he used some very choice words. To tell me, like, you guy, you can't even play. But later, at first, like, hey, and that was my first, because, I grew up in this Christian environment, very, very
politically correct.
Yeah, and very insulated.
Protected, yeah.
In fact, insulated. But now I'm in this place that is mainstream, that where people speak the way they want to speak.
I don't know. Sorry.
No problem, no problem.
What soda would you like to
Sprite. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah. So I'm in this very insulated world, and then it's all sorts of things that that I used to see from afar, and so it was it was like a deep end. Like there's no gradual, things that I would say that, hey, Christians don't do that, So I was thrown right there because he was not a Christian at that time, as far as I was concerned. So, and it was a different world. The mainstream world is totally different.
Okay, minus explain the experience for you.
Because
I'm sure there's a lot of growth.
Yeah, you see, for me, the first thing that shocked me is that a lot is demanded from you. So now you don't have. So if you're to write a tune, someone can tell you that it doesn't sound nice. Even if you're good, that's got nothing to do with the point. There's something specific he's looking for. That had never happened to me. So it's telling you write a 45-minute jingle. So it comes back like 45-second jingle, and it's telling you start again. So you're like, so you start questioning, is it that I'm not good or so that was a learning experience. It was like, so now this is where the work element comes into play. So there's someone who's paying me for a skill because there's something he wants in return. It's not just a hobby, musicals, things. This is now pro. Now I'm getting into being a professional. And that's when I learned now how to produce. So now the production element now started coming into at Bruce's, because I came in primarily as a musician to help with, but now I have to run sessions. And that's when now, up till date, the program that I found there is what I use now.
Logic. Oh, that's
Logic Pro. And at that time it was called eMagic Logic, before when Apple bought it.
What?
Yeah. That's when I learned how to record, how to edit.
And who is teaching you? Julian with Bruce?
Julian and Bruce.
Okay.
Pro Tools, that's why I learned about Pro Tools. And so now, because there are moments Julian won't be there, so who will be there to edit? There's someone who has come to do a voiceover, and Julian wasn't able to make it. I am there. So I just to sit and...
Can you remember some of the clients that you've worked with this time?
And that's what was... I'm saying when it's deep end, because now you're getting clients, big clients for like Ogilvy and Mather who are doing these ads. Ads for Coca-Cola. Big brands like EABL,
via Ogilvy, everybody is coming.
Yeah, so everyone, so all these brands and products that are, so Bruce, like this thing that I'm asking you to play will be running on TV tomorrow. So you can't give me choice word. Yeah.
Okay.
It has to be the best of the best. It has to be you're here. We're not playing games. This is only like you're not here because you play good. That's why you're here. That's your entry point. Because you're a good musician. But now we're like, expand your scope. Learn how to compose. And that's why I learned how to compose. Because I even realized later that it's more difficult to compose for 45 seconds
true.
Than for a 4-minute song. Because you have to say everything in that short time. And that's when I learned how to work on the fly right there. There's someone who is breathing fire on you and telling you, no, remove that. Let's do it again. And for me, that was absolute. I was a green musician.
Working with the best of the best.
Working with the best. And then let's talk about the music industry. That's when I met Hardstone.
Ooh.
That's when I met Masimaira.
Ooh.
That's when I met Gidi Gidi. That's when I now the music industry, as I knew, especially the contemporary music industry, that's when I started meeting these people.
Because they're coming, they're the voiceovers for
they're the voiceovers. Some of them are coming to do sessions for their albums. They're recording there. So I started.
And did you start working with anybody musically at this time?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not quite yet.
Well, but somebody asking you play a piano?
Yeah, I'd play a few things, but I was not really, because Bruce would want to handle that.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes I'd throw in a few keys, but then what I was really handling now was a lot of the jingles. You know,
I get.
And Masimaira is, that's where I really, because she would do a lot of the songs for the jingles. She was the singer for the tunes.
Yep.
And then Atemi
and Natasha.
Yeah, when they were into, that's when I met Atemi. All these artists that I know, I now started now. That's when I reconnected with Peter Dera. Because now he'd come to do some sessions and to do a couple of recordings at Bruce's, because he needed a studio. So now that's when we started having conversations. You know, I even recorded this band, Rumba Japan. Actually, that was one of the first gigs. Yeah, Rumba Japan, the guys who play Nini in Tao.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rumba Japan. Actually, it was one of the first recordings that I did for them, like handling the sessions, recording drums, mic technique. So
all this you're learning
on the fly. On the fly. You know,
Yeah.
and I credit Bruce. Bruce is one of the, if I was the day I write by bio or my memoir, Bruce is one of the, he's a key player in my growth.
You know,
Because not only that, so even he expanded my palette for music. Because he'd ask me, what do you listen to? Like, no, let me listen. Earth, Wind and Fire. All this
that's
old
where they
big,
came in.
Yeah, all this older soul music.
Yeah.
I knew because I'd hear it on radio, but go listen to these guys. Go listen to the Kool and the Gang. Go listen to Slim Ali. Now listen to the 80s guys. Go listen to the Hoddy Boys. Go listen to Ayubogada.
oh,
Go listen to all this. Go listen to African heritage. And he's the one who told me that Jack Odongo used to play keyboards for African heritage. Go listen to, and he'll give me these stories because he was there. He was in Safari Sounds.
in fact, I was going to ask this because Bruce is unfortunately not here.
Yeah.
RIP to him.
Yeah.
To give his story, but from your perspective, can you tell us a little bit about him?
Bruce is quite an interesting character in the sense that he grew up in not the best of circumstances, but his mom sacrificed everything she had to make him have, first of all, a good education. So he went to St. Mary's.
Wow.
So in fact, he tells me he had some very fascinating stories about how he'd be late because now all his rich friends
That's
are
why
coming.
he's good. He was classmates with the president.
Yeah, exactly. That's how he got to know all these guys who are now currently the leaders of our country. Because he tell me like, and I used to ask him, and you never used to feel bad. Of course, like at first I'd feel bad because now guys are coming with expensive cars. We have to take a bus and to be dropped and walk. But because his mom made an enormous sacrifice for him to go to St. Mary's. Because like you have to be the best. Go and learn how these rich people do their stuff.
No way.
Yeah, Bruce, I hope, man, that's, anytime even before he passed on, I'd sit down and ask me, hey, stop telling me the story about this guy. He's such funny, and then he'd tell it in such a funny way,
Yeah.
you know. So he's the one who started opening me up to understand how the contemporary scene works. Because he was with Safari Sounds.
And is this a rumor? But I hear Safari Sound sold over 1 million records.
Yeah, it's not a rumor.
CDs.
Yeah, because you know they were really based. They really did a lot of work in Europe, and they toured and toured and toured and toured and toured and toured.
Yo.
You know, Nakupenda. Yeah, those big songs that ended up becoming like the typical. Because he had this, and then also he had that connect because he was based. He got based in Mombasa for a while, so he had that connect of the tourists. And that's how he was able to be based in Germany, and he did a good stint in Europe. And you see, he was even for Safari Sounds, he told me he was not only the keyboardist at that time, and guitar player, but he was really into sound and the setups and recording. That's how he got into it.
And that's how he ended up setting
Starting
up
the studio,
Johari, Clef.
yeah.
Yes.
So he's the one who mentored me in that way in terms of the studio and how the workings of a studio, the workings of recording, making an album, pressing it. You know him because he was there the days of reel to reels.
Yep.
A reel to reel is a tape like this, where you, instead of putting everything onto computer and you see that wave, everything was put into a big
Big.
tape like this. Anyway, so So he's the one who got me to understand how the recording process works, how production works, you know, what elements need to be done, mixing, mastering, those things we hear in music. That's why I learned. I'm like, so what is mixing? It's like making sure that the guitar is not louder than this, louder than the piano. You know, the drum kit. You've got these 6 mics or 10 mics on a drum kit. You need to make it sound like the way I'm listening to you. So that's how I learned about production. You know, and now on top of that, now I'm starting to meet all these artists. You know,
we talked about Hardstone. That's day one.
Yeah, I'm starting to meet all these artists, voiceovers, people like Okina Sam Madoka. You know, this I had that was school for me. Major school. You know, so most of 2000 that was what was happening. But in between, I'm having this relationship with Pete Odera. Because he knows that now I'm coming out as a keyboardist. So now what is starting to go around that this guy can really play, you know. So at the end of the year, he comes and asks me, are you interested? I'm celebrating, I think it was his 10th anniversary. Because I think, I'm having this concert, huge concert at Grand Regency. And would you want to play for me? I was like, Pete, of course. I was like, for me, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, this is the guy. At that time, I was like, I saw this guy 6 years ago. I was in pain. I was in the one of the most tragic moments of my life. Now he's asking me to play for him. I'm like, wow. So I was floored, you know. And then he tells me, why don't we meet? There was a studio at McKinney School. What is the name of the studio? I've forgotten what the name of the studio is. Anyway, that's why they were rehearsing. And so, and then even let me rewind.
No problem.
1998, when I was doing one of the Nairobi Baptist shows, this guy shows up, and there's a big deal about it with Bapo guys. The bald head, looks big. It's Gowi Odera. So we exchanged, we just said hi. And then now later in 2000, 2 years later, it didn't even occur to me that Gowi is Pete's brother.
Bro, yeah.
So now when we start having a conversation, because I knew Gowi, so that's when I was like, Gowi is your brother? Like, yeah. So now he was playing drums. Gowi used to play drums. So he's like, this is the band. Guess who I meet and who we ended up playing? First of all, who was I working with at Bruce's, writing the ads? Jonah Uzele.
No way.
In 1986, my parents took me for an Uzele's concert at the KSTC hall. They were bringing it down, you know. In 1991, the Uzelas did a show did a performance in one of the Lavington variety shows. Now comes 2000. Because Jonah is such a lyricist, because he knows, like, you know that song for Kiwi, Ebu Jitokeze. That's Jonah Uzele. That voice is him. Bele ya watu Kiwi, that's him. So I'm dealing with guys who really know how to write these jingles, because before Bruce,
that is such a
before Bruce, the king of jingles was Jack Odongo.
Yep.
You know, that Princess Patra. Jack was like, and then by the time Bruce shows up, now the TV commercials were fully, and that was locked by Matthew Peavers, Sounds and Pictures. So those are the guys now who are doing like that KQ ad.
Yep.
So but what Bruce was able to do, he started locking in these radio ads, because like I'm not gonna do this. I won't go there because I'm not a video guy. So I'm locked. So Bruce owned already. There's a time like all radio ads. It was him. They were coming from Johari Clef. I did so many. In fact, for me, I'm even surprised. This one that still plays to date.
Which one?
Radio Citizens. That's Mwendi Mbugwa.
No way.
Yeah. That 106.7 FM. Radio Citizen. That's me and Jonah. That music that you hear, that organ,
and that one you produced it at Bruce's.
At Bruce's, yeah, that's me and Jonah.
So did you know Mwendi at this time?
I knew Mwendi because I knew her because there's a group called TTBC, which Atemi was
Yep.
in and out because she was in Into, but then when she focused on Into, and then of course Ted Josiah. Firstly, well, let me go
There's
back to
so
Ted
much.
Josiah, and there's so much to say.
Yeah.
Ted Josiah is ridiculous. In IB, when that guy dropped Kalamashaka's Tafsiri He, and then guess who ends up being his intern? Kaima.
Kaima was the Josiah's intern.
Yes, Blue Zebra.
Hi Kaima, forgive me. I have not known you.
In fact, even he's the one who was telling me about that time. It was Blue Zebra before it became Audio Sync. Yeah.
Yes. Audio Vault now.
Audio Vault.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. So Ted now brought another way. So that's why I was very excited to meet Hardstone, because now Hardstone had released that
the album Wiki.
yeah, and the vocoder. So I was like, who is this guy who's using a vocoder? Who's kind of producer is using the vocoder? You know. So now these are the guys, as I'm saying, I'm meeting in Bruce's place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having these conversations with Pete. Pete is telling me, let's do the show. And so we start doing the show. The show ends up becoming a success. Guess who is the opening act for the show for Pete Odera?
Who?
Milele.
Okay, let's eat.